Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and as you can clearly see, we are going back to our series in regards to HUD, in particular with a focus to Section 8, and what we are looking at possibly in regards to some major cuts into that program and what that will overall look like and end up doing to pretty much the majority of the folks that are currently on Section 8, including individuals who use those Section 8 waivers to help in regards to the costs of assisted living apartments, such as people with developmental disabilities, folks who are elderly, some folks who do need additional help on site, possibly due to mental health issues. And I wanted to make sure that the next part of this particular series I went into, that I wanted to make it objective, okay? Because the first people who put out the report in regards to this was NPR. I am in favor of NPR. NPR is essentially what the BBC is. And as much as people want to continue to say, well, obviously there is a bias, it's only bias if the other side's position is not represented in full. If it is not represented in full, along with the side that maybe the reporter or pundit is on with their side, that I would call bias. If, however, you are presenting both sides in their entirety first, then pundits are human beings. They have their own thoughts and feelings, their own observations and life experiences, and they are allowed to, of course, address that. I would like these folks to go back several decades to where they immediately put in a disclaimer that this is my opinion, because we've had a little bit too much pundits going around reporting on things that were indeed their opinion that was being presented as fact. This is what happens when you turn news into entertainment instead of just letting the news be the news. But you get where we're going there. So I decided to not go the NPR route. So I found something better for us today. We are going to go through what has been termed the skinny budget request, foreshadowing historic cuts to HUD and the full FY26 request. So, what we're actually doing is going over what our current president has put forward in regards to budget cuts, in regards to Section 8. And we are just going to allow that to speak for itself. Now, I'm going to go ahead and interject, though I'm not really a pundit. I am a disability rights advocate and have been for over 20 years. But I will stop periodically throughout the video and express some of my opinions, what I have observed, having been someone who has worked for the Missouri Department of Mental Health through the Division of Developmental Disabilities, where I have had interactions with those with HUD, specifically individuals who are helping get folks who need it enrolled into Section 8. But they're going to be opinions and observations. Alright, wanted to get that out of the way because I know eventually, in spite of my disclaimers of not being for Dems or Republicans, eventually somebody's going to get into the comment section. So there you go. Educated opinion, observations, and first-hand knowledge in regards to what we're taking a look at due to being an individual individual who has worked within the area of Section 8 as it is regarded to those of us with developmental disabilities within assisted apartment situations, and of course transition age. And let me clarify that too, just in case. When we talk about transition age, that means from high school into workforce or secondary education, and that does include housing. Can't believe I have to explain that these days, but God, here we are. Someone's in the comment. Alright, to the disclaimers and brief trigger warnings, folks. In regards to our HUD series, every single piece of documentation, video clips, blogs, opinion pieces, pretty much everything we're going to go over as we go through these series, you're going to see all the links of that right there in the description box, and more will be added as we continue on with this particular series. I do try and make sure that they are properly labeled so that when you click on them, you know exactly the information you're going to be pulling up. So if you would like to do a little bit more of a deep dive on your own time, feel absolutely free to do so. Trigger warnings. I do have this channel marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity, and we cover some pretty dark topics such as the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, Circle of Hope, Agape Boarding School, Tobin World, Kanakuk Camp, and more. So, if your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this channel, parental supervision is advised. Also, we do not have the bells, the whistles, and the professional looking type of template here for this channel, mainly because I don't know how, and I haven't had a whole lot of time to set aside to be able to learn. Hopefully I will someday. Maybe if they stop trying to rapid fire cut every single budget that helps anybody with a developmental disability remain in their own community. My opinion. Observation. And I see every day when I wake up and watch the news on my local KY3 channel. You get where I'm going there, right? But it's amateur hour, and I apologize for that in advance, alright? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on this. The proposals outlined in this preliminary request are not only tenable, they are unconscionable, said the NLIHC's interim president and CEO Renee Willis. At a time of rapidly rising rents, increasing economic hardship, and a record number of people experiencing homelessness, the administration should be asking Congress to expand, not slash, federal investments in affordable housing and homelessness assistance, and working with Congress and communities to ensure these vital resources are available to every household in need. And if, like it has always been said in the past in the Republican side, that there are church charity and things, yes, there are. But they are lacking massively. The thing that would actually allow them to pick up the slack, as it were, from our government cutting into these programs like an insane chain murderer from the Texas, you know what I'm saying, Texas Chainsaw Massacring our budgets for every single program that helps those with disabilities. My opinion. Just saying. Then maybe we could work with those charities to create a nice, solid infrastructure and make some coherent sense in regards to organizing the funding, so that we would be able to transition into that type of program where we could actually get them to take that slack. As of right now, that infrastructure does not exist. We are throwing the baby out with the bathwater and we're providing no safety nets. What it's going to produce is absolute chaos. You think the lawlessness has been bad from 2020 to now? You get that many homeless, desperate folks out on the streets, logically speaking, objectively speaking, looking towards the past, what do you think's going to happen? Again, my opinion. It'll be annoying and continue to say it. Because that's the world we live in these days. Alright, so we are going to go again and move down here. Overall, the skinny request would not only slash funding to vital affordable housing and homelessness assistance programs, it would redesign some of these programs entirely. Now, I do want to mention this is an analysis of what he submitted that is being done by the NILHC. So I'm going to go ahead and continue here. These are from individuals who are lending their educated perspective based off of what has been submitted to them. Let me go ahead and continue. The proposal would slash $26.72 billion from HUD's rental assistance programs, including housing choice vouchers, public housing, project-based rental assistance, PBRA, Section 202 housing for the elderly, and Section 811 housing for persons with disabilities, such as the assisted living apartment that I was in coming straight out of high school, and I remained there for about 6 years until I transferred over fully into adult services and began working full-time and all of that. By combining them and granting them into one program, state rental assistant block grants. Oh my God. So they're not just saying, we're going to cut things, we're also just going to make this extremely way more complicated than it needs to be. What do I mean by that? The reason why we have the vouchers separated out the way we do is because the criteria in regards to HUD is very different depending on what you are needing the assistance in regards to. For example, if it's to prevent homelessness or get someone off the street, that's going to be a separate thing from me getting into the Section 8 waiver as a part of my transition age program going from high school directly into secondary education or into the workforce. My criteria that I needed to meet in order to be eligible for that Section 8 voucher that assisted by covering half of the rental costs of said apartment while I was there during the time. And indeed, if I didn't get that voucher, I wasn't going to get that apartment. That criteria is going to look very different from criteria in regards to public housing. People who are just kind of down on their luck at the moment that are needing help to avoid or get out of being homeless. You know, the housing for the elderly is going to look similar to the one for people with disabilities, except it's a little bit more extensive, and it tends to kind of cover not just like an assisted living apartment, but also it's kind of more like that place that's Lancelot over there, which is kind of an assisted living / we have medical staff there for them should the situation call for it. There's a reason they are separated out the way they are. And in my professional opinion here, just blocking them all together into just straight state rental assistant block grants doesn't make sense because, in the way we get things now, someone who's going into one of the transition age programs coming out of high school has a criteria at the moment that they will probably be able to meet to get into one of the assisted living apartment situations such as I did. If you put everything under one single block, one criteria, why are you all creating a mess for no reason? Because then you have generic criteria. And in regards to generic criteria, I can guarantee you there's going to be numerous folks with disabilities who are going to fall through the cracks and not be able to get into Section 8 rental assistance for transition age assisted living situations because they don't fit the new generic criteria. Same thing may possibly, my opinion, remember my opinion folks, may not actually meet the criteria because it's just going to be new generic flat criteria. This is going to be a big mess. The proposal is estimated to amount to an unprecedented 43% cut to HUD rental assistance, which would impose a 2-year time limit on receiving rental assistance for able-bodied adults and encourage states to provide funding to share in the responsibility to ensure that similar levels of recipients can benefit from the block grant. I'm going to explain a few things to the current GOP that they don't understand. I do not feel like they understand a single thing in regards to HUD. You have these individuals sitting there ranting, absolutely believing with their full chest that these people are taking advantage of HUD, that they're sitting there in their little apartments gaming all day and refusing to work. And that's the majority of the folks who are on HUD. Well, I'm sorry if you agree with the GOP, but let me be blunt, you're wrong. You are 100% wrong. First, it is extremely difficult, even as criteria is for the separate areas within Section 8, to actually get approved for the waiver. Okay? I could not be in an awesome situation, you know? Like I got my state-of-the-art place with my movie theater sized TV and I just want to play video games all day and not work and pay rent, then no. Because you want to know what would have happened if that had been me? I would have been laughed out of the office. Okay? There are checks and balances when it comes to applying for these waivers, though, folks. They are there for specifically that reason. So these morons pontificating about a bunch of people just mooching off the government while playing video games have absolute no concept of reality whatsoever. At all. At all. Okay? My God. When I applied for Section 8, that was about around, it would have been mid-year 2004. Right? At that point in time, I had to wait 8 months. 8. I was given 2 months by the assisted living place to get the mess sorted out with Section 8. And at the end of those 2 months, if I had not managed to obtain the voucher, not just be on a wait list, but actually obtain the voucher, then I and my folks were going to have to figure something else out. Okay? HUD's not just randomly being the Oprah of Section 8 vouchers. You get rental assistance. You get rental assistance. You get rental assistance. Oh, it doesn't matter if you don't need it. Here's some for you. Not happening. Not happening. Alright? It is difficult to get on Section 8, to get approved for the initial waiver. Then the majority of us end up on waiting lists. The current wait right now to be approved to get into an apartment and have assistance with rent, as of right now, is literally sitting at 5 years. 5 years. But sure. Everybody's just playing video games on huge TVs and they just don't want to work. And that's the real problem. Yeah, for those of you who thought that the Democrats were out of touch, don't get me wrong. They are. They really are. But so is the GOP.